welcome in. Latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. Go by SEC Mike on the Twitters, and there's our great friend, Stephen Lassan, the senior editor over at Athlon Sports. Stephen, how are you, my friend?
Hey, Mike, fired up for week 9, my friend. What a great slate of games we got. Week 8 was awesome with the 8 conference games. We've got some favorites going on the road, which is always danger zone time in the world of college football. We got some playoff hopes. We got all the coaching stuff going on. So, man, what an exciting weekend of college football we got here for the final weekend in October. Where the heck did the season go, right?
Oh, yeah, that is wild to think about. So here, these are the games this week. Of course, 7 all-conference matchups. Only Georgia and Florida are off the board. They're each on a bye week, so cannot be more fired up for that. Steven's going to make his predictions for each and every game. We've got some PrizePicks selections, and shout out Steven. He's tied the Cousins. He's all the way up to 69 correct picks. So if you really want to listen to somebody, listen to the smart guy. Don't listen to Shane and I. We're trailing the Cousins and Steven. So, hey, pressure's on, Steven. I won't even and here's the thing. I never tell Steven who the Cousins pick. So this is all fair. The Cousins don't know who Steven's going to pick. So a lot of pressure on you, Steven. A lot of pressure on the Cousins to nail this one. You know what?
There is a ton of pressure. I mean, the weeks are counting down. I got to try to get in the lead, caught up a little bit. I should also mention, sometimes when we get on the show, I try to ask Mike leading questions to figure out who he's picking during the week. So that way, maybe I feel a little bit better. But he is very coy until about Thursday on his predictions. So kudos to Mike. And maybe much like the SEC conference race, maybe we'll have a close race down the stretch for number 1 on the board, right?
Yeah, no doubt. And all right, so before we get into it, as always, Stephen, got to remind the Cousins, podcast is brought to you by MyBookie. So again, listen carefully to Stephen's predictions because he's on fire. And then once you know Stephen's picks, head on over to MyBookie. MyBookie.ag is the website. Put in that promo code SEC with an initial deposit. And if you do that right now, Stephen, they're willing to give the Cousins a buyback guarantee of up to $500. So what's that mean? Let's say Steven gets one game wrong and you put your $500 on that one game. If you put in an initial deposit with that promo code SEC, they're going to give you, MyBookie is, a buyback guarantee of however much you lose, all the way up to $500. So you can keep on playing over at MyBookie. You can't beat that, Steven. So don't lose us any money, Steven. Only win us money with MyBookie. You know what?
Oh man, that's adding to the pressure to catch up on with the Cousins on the scoreboard. And now I'm trying to win the Cousins some money on MyBookie and PrizePicks. But hey, that's part of the deal here, right? I mean, we're week 9. We got all this good data. Hopefully we can maybe deliver some winners again this week.
And I've seen some comments in here, Stephen. Can any of your picks be bribed? Because Shane and I are totally for sale, but I think Steven's got too much integrity to be bribed.
Yeah, we're available for NIL deals. We will take sponsorship opportunities, but bribes, we probably better not do that. That would probably affect the integrity of the magazine.
Okay, well, see, you're a professional. We're not. But also, who is a professional, Stephen, is the legend JR.
Legend, cousin JR has done it again.
Thank you, JR. He has gifted a membership to Show Me Truth. Show Me Truth. Welcome to
the family.
Yeah. All right, Stephen. So show him some winners here. Not just in the MyBookie, but also our great friends over at PrizePicks. We've been partnering with them for 5 seasons now. So head on over to PrizePicks if you haven't already. Maybe you don't want to wager on the games. You don't want to wager on the over-unders. Maybe you're a little bit more interested in fantasy sports. They got you covered over at PrizePicks. So what PrizePicks is just daily fantasy. They set projections for all these players in college football, NFL, NBA. I think they even got NHL over there. But if you put in that promo code SEC over at MyBookie, same promo code, or excuse me, PrizePicks, MyBookie, same promo code SEC, play 5, get 50. So can you give us some winners over at PrizePicks, Stephen?
Let's hope so. I'll start with passing yards, Mike. I've got one play for you. Lenora Sellers is at 171.5. He has been 153 and less than on the passing yards. So at 171 against Alabama secondary, you can bet I'm taking the less than side. Am I crazy?
Oh, I thought you were setting it up for him to have a bounce back, but yeah, I'm pretty much selling Eddie's stock in Carolina's offense after, well, really the whole season, but especially after last week.
Yeah, I think unless Mike Shula suddenly becomes like Don Shula, or, they hire somebody off the street to call plays better, I don't think we can put a whole lot of faith in the South Carolina offense this week. So we're taking the less than side on the Norris Sellers. I got a rushing one for you.
Okay.
I've got John Mateer. He is at 39.5. Mike, Gunnar Stockton had pretty good day running the ball last week, right?
Yeah.
How about taking more than on the rushing yards for John Mateer?
My only concern there is we've gotten the running game going a little bit with the backs at Oklahoma. How much do we want to risk John Mateer getting banged up further? But I don't believe that man's got a governor, Stephen. He's just if it's there, he's going to take it,
Right.
And that's kind of part of what makes him great. I think is you just can't. You got to play free. So yeah, I think that's a solid selection given particularly how much wind Ole Miss was sucking down there in Athens on the defensive side of the football. They look like a tired defense to me.
It's almost like Trinidad Chambliss and John Mateer is the YOLO Bowl for quarterbacks here. Like a lot of rushing, just, screw it, rush for it if it's there. I got a handful on the receiving side, so I'll rapid fire these, Mike. Daquan Wright is at 43.5. I'm going to take the more than side, the Ole Miss tight end. So here's why I'm taking the more than side of that. In 5 of their 7 games, he's been on the more than side of that. So tough defense, but I like him as a safety valve for Chambliss. Rapid fire here, Mike. Tell me if you like these or not. Ryan Williams, 58.5. Let's go more than. Let's also take the more than side for Kevin Coleman, 53.5. And Eli Stowers, 45.5.
Ooh, man. So it sounds like you're expecting a lot of exciting football, some points, some receiving yards. The only one that I'm kind of now is Ryan Williams, just because it seems like they're really spreading the football around in Tuscaloosa this season. But I certainly know he's capable of getting there. I would just be slightly concerned that maybe it's an Isaiah Horton game or a Jeremy Bernard, and now they got the tight end going, they got the freshman going. So that one I don't hate, but that one I would be most concerned about of those selections.
I think it's almost like Ryan Williams tends to show up like in the bigger games, like he did this last week with 87 yards, 98 against Vanderbilt. Didn't have a catch against Missouri, but all it takes is one big play, and he's got that ability. You mentioned Lo Brooks, the freshman. He is at 34.5 for our friends over at PrizePicks. He's been coming on. So if you're kind of looking for like a sneaky play, maybe like more than on that side. So I think on Coleman and Stowers, I just see opportunities. Vanderbilt secondaries can be a little leaky. I think the same thing could be true for Missouri. So I think there's a chance there for Coleman and Stowers. Maybe not a ton of points, but a lot of opportunities for both on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. All right, Stephen, let's not delay any longer. We got 7 SEC matchups to dive into. Cannot wait. So let's tackle first. I mean, there are no bad games in the Southeastern Conference. Wait. Hey, I did want to bring this to your attention, because just in case you're on the fence, which I don't think you ever are, but shout out. I saw this on Twitter. I want to give the guy credit. Zach Barnett, I think was his name. He put out this. SEC teams are 2-6. Excuse me. This is a stat from last year. 2-6 on the back end of playing consecutive conference road games. 2-6. And this year, SEC teams are 0-3. Again, in game 2 of back-to-back SEC road games, no SEC team has won. And why we're bringing that up is because there's a lot of them this weekend, Stephen. A&M is on the back end of a back-to-back road test. Ole Miss, same deal. Missouri, Tennessee, Texas, mighty Texas, all of them. Game 2, back-to-back road conference games. No one has won thus far in the SEC, and last season 2-6. So I just say all that to say, buddy, we could be seeing some upsets this weekend. Just be prepared. I'm throwing a little firework into Steven's predictions here right before he reveals them to give him one last time to be hesitant on these. But
yeah, you should have told me that before we started.
Let's start with this one, Steven. Mighty Alabama on the road at South Carolina, 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central. Bama favored by 12.5 points. The over-under's 47.5. Who do you like in this one?
Mike, I think the big picture here for Alabama is close the deal. This stretch of games where they've beaten ranked team after ranked team, heavyweight fight after heavyweight fight. They've taken care of business. Now they got to go to Columbia and play a struggling South Carolina team. So I think there's a little bit of danger zone here for Alabama, just because they have struggled on the road under Kalen DeBoer. They've also had issues with mobile quarterbacks at times. You think back to Castellanos earlier this season. Diego Pavia had success too, even back to last year with Jackson Arnold. So I think for Alabama, the goal ought to be take care of business, get to the bye week, and set up November where they got a chance to win out and go to the SEC championship. For South Carolina, I think it's pretty simple. Like, desperation ought to be setting in because they've had 4 losses in their last 5 games, not to mention keeping bowl hopes alive. If you can pick off an upset, you get Coastal and you get Clemson later in the season, there's a chance to still get to a bowl game. So I think the big storyline for me is almost like the psychology here. Like, does Alabama have a letdown, or do they just show up and take care of business? And they have been very methodical. Like, since that Florida State game, they feels like they have been a different team. So I do have some confidence they can go on the road and take care of business. I think the timing favors South Carolina, obviously, because it's at home and the stretch that Alabama's had. I think the matchup that I'm watching the most is that South Carolina pass rush against Ty Simpson. Does Dylan Stewart play? Is he healthy? Is he limited? Can you create some havoc against Ty Simpson? That's probably your path to victory. We talked last week about defensive and special team scores for South Carolina. I think you're going to probably need like a couple turnovers here, because if Simpson gets in rhythm and picking apart the secondary, I think it's going to be tough for South Carolina, just because you look at their scores in SEC play, 7 against Oklahoma, 7 against Vanderbilt, 10 against LSU. Outside of that Kentucky game, it's been about 10 or 7 points in SEC play. And of course, they scored 20 against Missouri. So they're going to need to manufacture probably some points outside of the offense to win this game. They're going to need some turnovers. I do worry about Alabama in the spot, considering the stretch. But everything just tells me this is a different Alabama team. I think South Carolina hangs around. They keep it interesting. I think Alabama wins it, though, Mike, 30-13. Maybe it's a little bit optimistic on the score for Alabama, but I think Alabama takes care of business and avoids a road loss.
30-13, man. How soon do they put the for sale signs up in Beamer's house? You know what I mean? Oh, man, can't keep it competitive. Now, again, hell, I thought last week they'd win, so maybe that's just me being optimistic, but I'd love to see a lot closer game than that. But any concern that, DeBoer and Bama, they've struggled in all these. Big favorite, playing it's the damnedest thing, right? They can win these ranked matchups, but they lose the unranked ones. This is another road, unranked, big favorite. Any concern that they'll blow it like they have so many times under Kalen DeBoer?
Absolutely. I mean, that's like my biggest hesitation with this game. And when I was trying to go through predictions, I actually I had like 24-10 at one point, 27-13. So I kind of kept bumping it up. Maybe that's the wrong thing to do here, but I am concerned. I think from a on-field like matchup thing, the only kind of path that you would see for South Carolina is they've done this before. Like, they've pulled off an upset at home. Sellers has a huge day. That second half spark starts to get going. They create a turnover, short field. And then Alabama's like, like we've been here before. Like, we struggled on the road, and Sellers is having a good game. So I am worried about that. But since that opener, I mean, it's been a very difficult stretch, and they have been taking care of business. So I'm banking on this being a little different outcome for Alabama. I would not be stunned, though, if South Carolina at least keeps it interesting or a lot closer than the Oklahoma game was last week.
And don't forget, Stephen, shout out the official turnover trash can. We're still in Cocktober, so anything can happen. We're gonna at some point we're gonna have to let that go. When they're, I think last October they were not that great either.
How many times is Shane Beamer going to be asked about changes to the coaching staff if they lose this game, right?
No doubt. All right, let's move on, Stephen, to rivalry, kinda. Tennessee at Kentucky. Tennessee, big favorite though, on the road, Stephen, by 7.5. Oh, it's actually gone down. 7.5. The Vols are favored. 54.5 is the over/under. Is the late game. 7:45 Eastern, 6:45 Central on the SEC Network. Tennessee at Kentucky. Who do you like here, Stephen?
Are you surprised that the spread is moving in Kentucky's direction?
A little bit, but I did want to throw this at you too, Stephen. So I know Tennessee's been dominant, right? They've won the last 4 and about 30 of the last 33. But the last 4 at Kroger Field have all been decided, Stephen, by 6 or less points. Kentucky won in 2017. 19, Vols won 17-13. 21, Vols won 45-42. And then 2 years ago, Vols won 33-27. So, history is not necessarily an indication of what is to come, but this is Kentucky's last chance, I think, to, and we can only say that so many times for these teams, but this is like their last opportunity to get some momentum. Hated rival. This could be the last stand for old Mark Stoops, if that makes sense.
There you go, stealing my good stat. I was like, well, Tennessee's been dominant in the series, but Kentucky's kept it within 1 score. So yeah, great stat. I mean, right? That's kind of the setup for this game is, Kentucky, traded punches with Texas last week, took them to the wire. Did they empty the tank last week against Texas? Or is there another kind of close game still here available for Kentucky? Like, did they expend all the energy to try to beat Texas and they're kind of exhausted this week with Tennessee coming to town? I think big picture, that's kind of the storyline. Kentucky trying to pull off the upset. If you're Tennessee, you've got to win this game to stay in the playoff mix. You don't want to tempt fate like Texas did last week, which is let Kentucky hang around, get the crowd into it. You get Kentucky's defense making a couple stops. All of a sudden, they've had the ball for 35 minutes, and then you're in a real blender if you're Tennessee. So I think the style right off the jump is super important for Tennessee. Like, can you get on the scoreboard early and dictate the style of play? I think if Kentucky falls behind, it's going to be hard for this team to catch up. But if this game is close early, they can run McGowan. We saw us last week that Cutter Boley had a good game against Texas. They had nearly 40 minutes of time of possession. I do think that Tennessee's defensive line can also create the same kind of havoc we saw Texas do last week. 5 sacks, 11 tackles for a loss. No, Tennessee's defense has some issues outside of that, but I think they can create some havoc. So I think obviously the key here is style of play, Tennessee avoiding the upset. We know Kentucky perhaps is motivated one more time for Mark Stoops. I don't think Tennessee is going to play this game as cautiously as Texas did. I think Texas was terrified offensively because they were having trouble blocking. Arch was all over the place. I don't think Joey Swagular is going to be that way, right? Give me the Vols, 31-20. I think they go to Kroger Field and take care of business.
Oh, 31-20. Now, maybe this is not a fair question because we to kind of like trolls another program when we're talking about these. But if Tennessee is able to manufacture that level or more of offense against Kentucky, does that tell you anything about Texas? That maybe they're even in bigger trouble given that what they score 16?
Yeah. Mike, I think Texas has just been very hard to get a read on this year because the Oklahoma game is kind of like an outlier at this point. We saw them. I mean, they have not played well on the road to begin with. Arch did some good things against Florida, but they still struggled offensively with the offensive line. I know you look at his quarterback hits, the amount of times he's been hit and pressured, it's one of the worst in the SEC. So it's obvious that the offensive line is the main culprit here. But I do think it says a lot. And I think just watching that game last week against Kentucky, and you can tell me if I'm crazy, but I thought Sark was like, there was like 5 plays that he was like determined to call because they were just terrified. They couldn't block. And like I said, Arch was kind of scattershot. And it's like, we just got to punt and play defense. We cannot take a risk here. So I don't think Tennessee's going to play it that cautious. Am I crazy on that one?
No, yes, I certainly think. Well, I don't know. Low T Heupel, he gets cautious at times. But what about on the other side? Cutter Boley, you mentioned him. He's playing better and better and better. He had a lot of success against Texas, and they got one hell of a defense. Tennessee, not. I know they're opportunistic. That's probably the best word to describe the Tennessee defense, but not necessarily stout. Particularly, against the run game, which Kentucky can have success. And hell, even in the secondary. What kind of performance do you think we need to see from Cutter Boley for Kentucky to pull the upset?
So Tennessee has given up at least 30 points in its last 3 SEC games. And I think you have to go into this game knowing that if Kentucky gets McGowan going and Boley plays like he did last week where the rushing was there and we saw the passing, it was like, 31 of 39, like the efficiency, like everything. I mean, Kentucky's going to make this a 4-quarter game if that's the case. So I think if last week's version of Cutter Boley shows up, I don't think Tennessee's anywhere near as good as Texas on defense. There's a real opportunity to make this a 4-quarter game. So I think no doubt about it, Boley's critical, but I almost wonder to some extent if McGowan might be the X factor here for Kentucky. The offense has to run through him because I thought one of the reasons that Kentucky offensively was effective last week was they were not asking him to hit 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12 all game. They were able to kind of keep it manageable. So I think if you can do that, if you're Kentucky, you got a chance to pull off the upset here.
Does it concern you at all? I don't know if you've seen the statistics here, Stephen, but Joey Aguilar at home, 13-3 touchdown to interception ratio. On the road, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Does that concern you at all? Or is that maybe, you could splice these however you want, but you could easily say, well, at home, at times they're playing lesser competition, while on the road, it's all conference or Syracuse, I guess you could count. But does that concern you at all? That he struggled on the road?
A little bit. Going on the road and playing in the SEC or any conference is really hard. So it's not totally surprising. I think you could also wonder, like, hey, what if Tennessee's offensive line doesn't hold up? Like we saw Kentucky last week. I know Texas is really struggling up front, but what if Kentucky gets pressure on Aguilar? That can only add to it. So that's kind of why I think, given that, maybe he's been a little bit up and down on the road, it feels like to me that Tennessee, if they can get off to a fast start and they score quickly and it's 7-0, 10-0, I think you take that crowd out of it, and then you can kind of dictate the style of the game, which really kind of helps maybe alleviate some of that pressure on Joey Aguilar's shoulders there.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I apologize one more time. What was your score for this one?
31-20 Tennessee.
You just hate Stoops. Ridiculous, Stephen.
He's motivated, though.
We'll see about that. All right, I'll tell you who better be motivated, Stephen, and that is Mr. Do you even have the right to call plays anymore? Steve Sarkisian and your boy Arch on the road at Mississippi State. Stephen, we just talked about Texas and their struggles on the road. Buddy, this is a dangerous spot. Just ask anybody that's gotten into Starkville this season. Never an easy win. Tennessee had all they could get. Arizona State got knocked off. They thought they were going to, be playoff contenders. No, sir. Mississippi State got them and should have went on the road and won last week, but shoulda, coulda, woulda. What's your thoughts on Texas and Mississippi State, who Texas still fighting for a playoff spot? Mississippi State just searching for their first conference victory in 16 tries, but this is not this team in particular is not the team that lost 15 in a row, but they still need to prove it. It's one thing to be close. It's another thing to actually get over the hump, so to speak.
Yeah, the question I think we have to ask ourselves here is which version of Texas is going to show up? Is it the one that beat Oklahoma or the one that, kind of messed around and played terrible for 4 quarters at Kentucky last week? That's the big question for me. I think in terms of just like the big picture matchup here, Mike, it's got like 4 or 5 red sirens blaring here. It's like danger zone for Texas, right? You're walking into Starkville where Mississippi State nearly beat Tennessee. They beat Arizona State. Texas has been not very good on the road. They scored 7 against Ohio State. They scored 21 against Florida. And of course, they scored 16 last week to beat Kentucky. I said it on the Monday show, Mike, but I think if Texas gives that same kind of performance that they did last week against Kentucky, they will walk out of Starkville with a loss because Mississippi State is significantly better. And I assume that they really want this game. And not to mention, in terms of motivation, we talk about like program defining, season defining wins. If Arizona State was good, they're in the top 25. Texas, preseason favorite, coming to Starkville, it's your place. If you're Jeff Levy, you get this game. It is a massive victory just in terms of where this program is going. So just based upon the way Texas has played, I don't know how you have a lot of confidence in the road, right? I mean, they have struggled here. So I think that's kind of a defining pillar of this game is Texas and how they've played on the road and their chase to get to the playoff. They've got to win this one, set up a showdown against Vanderbilt. Then you get Georgia, Arkansas, Texas A&M. A lot of obstacles still to go, but there's a path there. So Mississippi State trying to get the upset, Texas trying to keep its playoff hopes alive. I think the big matchup here, Mike, is if it's going to happen in the trenches because the Texas offensive line has really struggled this year. The good news is Mississippi State is 14th in the SEC against the run, and they don't get a ton of sacks. So it's probably a little different challenge than we saw against Kentucky last week. I think if you're Texas, the key to the game is offensive line, run game. You got to get Trey Wisner. You got to get those other guys going, take the pressure off of Arch. I think what we saw against Oklahoma, when they got the ground game going, Arch was able to thrive off of that. So I think that's the key to the game for Texas. And then on defense, I think Texas and Colin Simmons is starting to wake up on the defensive front. So that's a problem for a Mississippi State team that's allowed 20 sacks this season. Now, they have rushed for over 200 yards in 3 of their last 5 games. So if they can get that going, there's a path here for Mississippi State. Also throw in no Michael Taff. And you talk about being on the road, Blake Shapen and his big plays potentially, communication breakdowns in the secondary. I said like 5 sirens there. There's a ton of sirens going off here to tell me to take the upset. I think Texas bounces back, though. I don't think they give I don't think this is a like 5-star performance. I think really this is about Texas defense. And I think Texas defense does enough. Wisner runs it well enough. And Texas escapes Starkville with a 24-20 victory.
Yeah, I should have known. Old Arch Manning, president of the fan club over there. But yeah, I apologize. I think I left this out. Texas is only favored by 6.5 points. What would have surprised you more, Stephen, if I would have told you in the preseason Texas is a 6.5 point favorite in this game, or just the fact that Texas would be 5-2 at this point of the season? What would surprise you more?
I think the spread for this game, because one, Mississippi State is a lot better than I anticipated. I expected them to be better, but probably not this feisty. I think when you look at that Texas schedule coming into the year, we knew they got Ohio State, Florida on the road, and then Oklahoma. 2 losses wasn't crazy coming into the season. So I think it's more about the spread in this spot.
But it is interesting, isn't it? It is interesting. Just 6.5, the road struggles, and maybe a little bit different story. I don't know. Maybe apologies. Maybe you have an update that I don't. But Fluff Bothwell, he's banged up. I don't know that he's going to play. You know, one player doesn't make or break a team. But if he was 100%, and we knew that, I think that could have been key in this football game because I think Mississippi State's. I know Booth has been really good, but you want multiple running backs against a defense of this front. As you mentioned, the Texas pass rush, how it's heating up. Well, the best way to kind of combat that is have a very productive rushing attack. So, yeah, I don't know. Tough spot for Mississippi State, but this would be a historic win for Jeff Lebby and company. And maybe, just maybe, Stephen, I think two things could happen. You lose that heartbreaker at Florida, and it's like, damn, we're so close. Well, let's just finish. I saw someone in the comments say that. Just finish like you couldn't do against Tennessee. You win this one. You're beating yourself more than anything. And there's an opportunity to get this. And I wouldn't even call it a win at this point. I'd just say, if you were to tell me Mississippi State beat Texas, I'd say, well, that doesn't really surprise me. I mean, quite honestly, you know what?
It would be an upset in terms of the spread and in terms of, Nick Roush and Logo watching over there. But, Mike, the Texas defense has been very good against the run. Like 159 to Florida was the most they've given up this year. So I think to your point, like if you have Bothwell, gives you another weapon to go with Booth. You can sort of, obviously rotate those guys, take some of the pressure off of Shapen. But I think if you just watch the way that these two teams have played this year, I think Texas can get a lot better from what we've seen. But I also think just the timing of it, like Mississippi State has been really close to one of these. Texas almost lost to Kentucky. Like just on the most basic level, if you've watched these teams and you look at those two stats, it wouldn't stun me at all if Mississippi State won this game. It wouldn't really necessarily be a massive upset in my mind.
Right. And I should be clear, to my knowledge, Bothwell's not out. But I think his status is, he's not expected to play is how I understand it. So he could go. Yeah. I don't know. So I just wanted to make that note. Hey, shout out Cousin Rick. Let me play my little jingle for him because he's such an outstanding cousin.
It's Texas A&M's biggest fan, Cousin Rick. Gig 'em, Aggies.
Thank you, Rick. Anyone know what the SEC policy is? If a game cannot be finished due to weather, beat the hell out of LSU. I don't know that I've ever seen that. I mean, they're going to play it out.
That's a great question. So if most of the season we've had weather delays that involve like lightning and some bad storms, and I think they try to wait it out as long as they can, basically. It's very difficult to reschedule. I guess is Cousin Rick talking about this week's game with?
I think so. LSU A&M, because he's traveling to LSU. But I was gonna say, and I'm laughing. I'm not laughing at the weather or anything. But do you recall, Stephen? It was all I remember was Coach O led team. And they were playing somebody, and it was like a damn monsoon. I think pieces of the stadium was falling off, and they still played that one. You know what I mean? Yeah. It wasn't. No one thankfully got hurt, to my knowledge. But I mean, that was like that literally was. It's like they were in the eye of a hurricane or something.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Honestly, on the policy of it, I will say if something like, knock on wood, hopefully nothing terrible happens or anything like that. But I guess both teams do have an off week next week. So there would have to be some kind of crazy rescheduling. But my guess is that they will make every effort to try to play the game on that day, even if it takes like 8 hours. We saw last week too, Texas A&M, Arkansas got moved back a couple hours to avoid that storm.
Right. Yeah. I'm looking up which game this was, but I'm not really finding it. The internet, it's gotten bad to search these days. I mean, once it's 3 years old, it's like, good luck finding it. You know what?
Once you asked AI, maybe it can help us out.
Hey, well, I'll tell you, I want to shout out Mizzou fan Stephen. He gifted 5 memberships to the channel. What a Mizzou fan you are, Stephen. if you're on the fence, maybe that'll be enough to get you to pick Mizzou. But shout out Mizzou fan. He gifted Daniel Maddox, David Wheeler, Rob Rutherford, Anthony Manzano, cool name, and Michael Carter. All of y'all, welcome to
The family.
Yeah, thanks to Mizzou fan number 7. Hey, Stephen, before we move on, though, I want to tell you and the cousins. See this great hair I got here, Stephen? I'm going to credit it to these peptides I've been taking via Bubs Naturals. It helps, Stephen. It helps with your hair, your fingernails. It helps with your proteins and things of that nature. Get stronger. You're getting tired of feeling old. I know I am, Stephen. This helps with joints, bones, all that stuff. So go check them out, Bubs Naturals. There's a link in the show notes. There'll be a link in the podcast if you're just listening back. Go check them out, Bubs Naturals. Promo code THATSEC, THATSEC, over at Bubs Naturals. Get 20% off your full order. This is a great stuff here, Stephen. I know, you ever wake up and you got stiff joints in the morning, you're trying to get over that gym workout, your nails are breaking. I know mine are when I'm watching these damn games over here. But it has helped me tremendously getting on these Bubs Naturals. So go check them out, bubsnaturals.com, promo code THATSEC, and get a little extra pep in your step. I sent some down to Hugh Freeze to get him over whatever it ails him, and maybe Auburn can get over that hump this season because he's got some Bubs Naturals. You know what?
I thought you were going to send him to Texas after that performance last week. Like, they need something. They need some like pregame coffee or Bubs. I think our friends at Bubs ought to send him a gift package to wake up this week at Mississippi State, right?
I don't know. I mean, Bubs is a fine product. I don't even know if it's enough to help his Texas offense. I'll just be honest with you, Stephen. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Man, what a crazy statement that a Steve Sarkisian offense is one of the worst in college football, isn't it?
It is, but there is one that is significantly worse, Stephen.
That's a great transition.
Shout out Auburn on the road. They were favored, Stephen, when the lines came out, but then people said, oh, hell, we watched Hugh Freeze coach team play. So now Arkansas is favored by 2.5. The line has flipped completely. The over-under is 56.5 total points. This is a 12:45 Eastern, 11:45 a.m. Central kick on the SEC network. And just so you know, Stephen, just so you know, and all the cousins, in case you were unaware, Hugh Freeze wants everybody to know our last 4 opponents are 25-3. So we're close. They're good. We didn't blow any of these games. They're just good is what it is. Are they going to get a good win, or are they going to get another good loss?
I am thoroughly enjoying these stats because I wonder who is tasked with giving Hugh Freeze these stats each week, right? Like, imagine a head coach going, I need stats to prove that we've played a tough schedule. Mike, I think you left out the most important thing there, which this is definitely has serious Jefferson Pilot sports vibes with this one. Sleepy early morning kickoff, coach on the hot seat, interim coach, right? So I think, just in the big picture and what this game kind of means, bowl hopes for both teams. Arkansas, a little bit harder to get to a path. If you're Auburn, you really need this game to get there. But also Hugh Freeze trying to cool the pressure into 4-game losing streak. Man, that Baylor game looked great, but that was weeks ago. And 4 straight losses in SEC play. Yes, they've been close, but we've heard this all year. They're close. It's their third. It's Hugh Freeze's 3rd season. It's his roster. So this is a critical game, probably for the direction of the program. Probably a critical game for Bobby Petrino as he tries to make his case for the full-time job. Pretty simple, I think, in terms of the matchups. I think number one, Taylon Green versus this Auburn defense. I mean, this Auburn, the ineptitude of the Auburn offense is wasting a good Auburn defense. And it's going to be a fun matchup to see like Keldrick Falk and this Auburn defensive front go against this Arkansas offensive line and try to corral Taylon Green for 4 quarters. And then on the other side of the ball, Arkansas can't stop anybody. Auburn can't do anything offensively. So however those 2 matchups play out is how I think this game is going to go. Also, we add in the quarterback uncertainty for Auburn. Like, is it Jackson Arnold? Is it Ashton Daniels? You're missing your starting center and Connor Liu. there's some real questions here. I do think Auburn, if they just come out in the I formation, they could probably run it all day on Arkansas. But Mike, do you have a lot of confidence in Auburn on Saturday?
Confidence in Auburn, a little. Confidence in Hugh Freeze, none.
So I keep thinking Auburn's got a pretty good defense, right? They're bound to win one of these. I keep thinking Taylor Green is pretty good. Both these teams have been close. They've had some heartbreak. But Bobby Petrino is ready to ride again. Give me the Hogs. I think Arkansas at home gets it done. I'm going to take Arkansas 30-27 over Auburn.
If it plays out that way, do you think this is the last game Hugh Freeze coaches at Auburn?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think the odds, I think he probably finishes the year, or maybe that bye week, November 15th.
I don't know if it's true. Again, I should probably stop sharing information that I don't know is true. But someone told me that the buyout drops by $15 million, which is like 33% of the buyout, if they fire him after December 1. So there may be a case to hold on to him, to fire him, if that makes sense. Because, again, you can, and hell, you can let him know. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do. And even like Sam Pittman, you know, they let him go. I think that was probably the dialogue they had, you know, where we can keep you, and it'll just be kind of a charade, or you can go and you'll get the buyout. But, you know, maybe you go enjoy your time, but you're going to get the buyout had we waited a couple months, if that makes sense. So there's many different ways to do it. But, I say all that to say, if you're losing to interim Bobby Petrino, your ass got to go, I think. And let's flip it more positive. I don't know how positive this is, but I guess if Arkansas wins this one, 3-5, with you know, a couple, hell, what they've done against A&M and Tennessee, I would say the way LSU's playing, the way Texas is playing, those games are winnable. And who knows, Missouri. Look at this slate Missouri's got. Vanderbilt, A&M, Mississippi State, Oklahoma before they get to Arkansas. You know, what are the chances Bobby Petrino keeps his job if he can beat Auburn at home? Does it increase at all, or not? None for you?
I think it definitely helps. One other thing I think we should consider here with the Petrino and Arkansas thing is the amount of jobs that could come open. And we've already know Florida's open. I do think there's a very good chance like Florida State comes open, Wisconsin, you know, Auburn probably too. At some point, you get so many openings in the carousel that it almost becomes kind of default to keep the, you know, Petrino if he can get you a couple wins here down the stretch. So I've always felt like if you get to 6-6, if you're Petrino, that helps your odds. I think it's probably a short-term high if you get Petrino as your head coach for the long term. I think the 2 to 3 year window would be pretty nice, but after that, I don't think you're probably going to be punching too high in the SEC. Mike, I will say in Hugh Freeze, I mean, if they lose this game, they're 3-5. I don't see a path to them to getting to a bowl game. So, I mean, it does kind of feel like, hey, this might be the last stand, because if you win this game, you get to Kentucky. And I think they'll beat Kentucky. I think they'll beat Mercer. So you get to 6 wins. At least you would have a fighting chance to save your job. I don't see how you could make a case to be the Auburn coach in 2026 if you've had 3 losing seasons, right?
You know, I think that's completely fair. And he said it. The bar is to make a bowl game. So, hey, you don't do it. According to your own weak ass definition, your ass got to go. You know what?
I think so. I think it's definitely win this one, and you probably get to a bowl game. Lose, and you're probably out. The only question is the timing and how the buyout works and all that.
Mm-hmm. Well, hey, shout out Cousin Lou. Steven, he gifted a membership. He doesn't like Hugh Freeze either. That's why I like Lou. And he gifted one a chance. Welcome to
the family.
Yeah. And Brandon Riley's back. He gifted himself one. Appreciate you, Brandon. Brandon, welcome to
the family.
Yeah. He says, hey, Oklahoma, Ole Miss going to have an 88% chance of rain. So maybe that'll skew your prediction, Steven. I don't know. We'll see coming up here. Shout out Mizzou fan. Number 7 gave us a donation. Hugh Freeze would probably prefer a bottle of Tennessee Legend and an Arkansas cheerleaders Twitter handle after the game. Yeah, well, I think you're dead on with that one.
I mean, put it in a positive sense, Mike. If Hugh Freeze isn't Auburn's coach, he's got all that time to Twitter search his name, slide into DMs, get back to being the old Hugh, right?
He'll be back before you know it. He'll get his Twitter back, you know?
Yep.
All right. How about this one, Steven? What a game. So many great games here. These top 3 games, real coin tosses, in my opinion. But let's go Ole Miss on the road at Oklahoma. Steven, what a showdown. Early one. Noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, nationally televised on ABC. Oklahoma favored by 4.5 points. The over-under 54.5 total points. Who do you like in this epic showdown?
Man, I am so torn on this game. I have gone back and forth a couple times on a prediction. This is I will say, I love the fact that this game is at noon. I know Oklahoma fans are probably going to be really mad at me for saying that, but I just love having a showdown in that first window that's actually a high-profile game, much like we saw Vanderbilt and LSU last week. So I'm excited to kind of have this one in that early window, and it kind of, after all this build-up, we get it out of the way early. But I think big picture here, Ole Miss, 1 loss, Oklahoma, 1 loss. It is massive for playoff purposes. Oklahoma, given their schedule difficulty, probably really needs to win this one. I think it's going to be hard to win out. If they can get this one, they're in good shape going into November. Also, what fascinates me is you have good on good here. You've got an Ole Miss offense that is capable of putting up 35, 40 points against an Oklahoma defense that is number 1 in the country in defensive success rate. The pressure they can put on your offensive line, 2 out of the 3 opponents, they've held under 70 rushing yards. So this Oklahoma front against Chambliss, Keywan Lacey, the X's and O's between Kiffin and Venables, man, it is going to be a fascinating good on good. Then you get to the other side of the ball, which I think it's fair to say, like, there are some questions for both here. I mean, Ole Miss has been, we saw last week, they had trouble getting stops. Oklahoma's offensive line rushing attack starting to wake up a little bit. Ole Miss is 15th in the SEC against the run. So can they do it again? 171 yards last week? I think we'll see. I wonder now, we've a couple weeks now with Mateer to knock off the rust. Maybe we see a little bit better version of him. I also think if you're Oklahoma, you're probably pretty encouraged by watching Gunnar Stockton make plays on the ground and think, if he can do it, Mateer can probably do it. So there's a lot of good on good and questions on questions here. I am also watching the turnover margin because both these teams are at the bottom of the SEC, and this game feels very tight to me. Like I said, I have gone back and forth on the scoreboard of where I feel here. I would also argue that this might be the best passing game that Oklahoma has faced this year because they face Texas and they face Auburn. Both those teams have, obviously, Singleton and Coleman and all the pieces for Texas are very good, but the Ole Miss, the collective, has been better this year in terms of just statistics. So good challenge for Oklahoma's secondary. I've gone back and forth on this one, Mike. So I know I got to go on the record here. Here's what I came to. This game's in Norman, and I trust the Oklahoma defense to get one stop. We saw this last week with Georgia and Ole Miss. Georgia got one stop, and that was it. I think Oklahoma can do it here. I don't have a ton of confidence in the winner. I like Oklahoma 27, Oklahoma 27, Ole Miss 24, largely because of home field and a defensive stop somewhere in the fourth quarter.
Oh, man. Let me ask you this, Stephen. If that's true, if that's the way it plays out, and Ole Miss drops to 6-2, do they make the playoff?
I think they still do. I think they'll win out. I think Florida and Mississippi State are going to be tough for Ole Miss. I have really no idea what to expect from Florida, to be honest with you, but they still have a lot of talent. I think the Egg Bowl could be an absolute like dogfight, no pun intended. But I think Ole Miss can still get to 10-2 if they win this game.
What about what are Oklahoma's chances to make the playoff if they improve to 7-1?
I think they can get in the playoff at 9-3. And you may call me crazy, but they've got that good win over Michigan. The loss to Texas, obviously. But if you beat Ole Miss, and if you can get to 9-3, you're probably talking about Tennessee, maybe Missouri. Those are ranked wins, or you get LSU and you get to 10-2. So I think strength of schedule helps Oklahoma. I still think you want to be 10-2, but the extra emphasis on strength of schedule, I think, opens up a path and if they get there at 9-3.
Is there a better matchup that perhaps we've had all season, Stephen, with an offensive mind, Lane Kiffin, versus a defensive mind, Brent Venables? And how about, I'm sure you saw it. If you didn't, maybe if anybody missed it, Lane Kiffin let it be known out there to the world, hey, old Brent Venables, he's pretty good at stealing signs over there, which I'm not saying it's illegal or anything, but, I just thought that was interesting. Have we had a better matchup, you think, this season, offensive-minded coach against a defensive-minded coach?
Sark versus Venables, but the way Texas has played this year, I mean, the Texas offense not anywhere near the Ole Miss offense in terms of productivity. So yeah, I mean, Kiffin versus Venables is going to be a fun 4-quarter battle, I think, just to see how, offensively. I think if I'm Ole Miss, you want to see Keywan Lacey get going. Like, how do this is a tough road spot for Chambliss. I think I'm going to be interested to see how they make this all work for Ole Miss against this good defensive front and what you can do with quarterback mobility, maybe roll in the pocket, some things like that. So it's a heck of an X's and O's battle here.
And do you buy into the narrative at all that maybe Oklahoma's a little overrated on defense because of who they faced up to this point? Would you buy that at all?
It's a good question. I don't think so. Obviously, the game against Texas was a little weird. Like if we just look at the track record of both, like the fact that Texas was able to run that ball so well and they haven't this year. I still think if you just forget about the stats and just watch the talent they've got up front, this is the best defensive line in the country. Sure, you could throw the ball in their secondary, but not talking for 400 yards. So I don't think they're overrated. If they're not number one, they're in the top 5 somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me flip it the other way, Stephen. Is it any cause for concern? Because I think it really could be that Ole Miss went 5 for 5 on touchdowns against mighty Georgia, and still, it's almost like they literally have to score a touchdown every time for their team to win. That is obviously not sustainable. Now, you credit them on one hand for getting that done on the road against Georgia and all their outstanding athletes and coaches. But, how big of a red sign is it that you literally have to score a touchdown seemingly every time you touch a football to win?
I think that's a great question because just thinking about the Ole Miss season so far, we know Arkansas moved the ball very well on this defense with 35 points. The LSU game looked pretty good at the time, but I think we've seen this LSU offense is just not very good. Georgia to be able to put up 43, I think it says to me there are some real, they're working through the growing pains still with so much turnover and all that. I think Pete Golding will get this defense on track. But you just look at kind of some of the numbers. I mean, they're 94th in the country in defensive success rate, 129 in success rate against the rush. They have some real statistical concerns right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm just throwing it out there, Stephen, because it's going to be one heck of a game. And I also think it's going to be one heck of a game in Nashville. How about it, Stephen? Mizzou on the road at Vanderbilt. College game day coming to town, 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central, nationally televised on ESPN. Vanderbilt favored by 2.5. The over-under's 52.5 points. And, buddy, Eli Drinkwitz will tell you every opportunity he's given, they don't respect us. They don't want us. This is all about Vanderbilt. He's using all the tricks in his bag, Stephen, to let it be known that Missouri, even though they beat Vanderbilt 5 times in a row, that all anybody cares about is this story that is Vanderbilt football, while little old Mizzou, top 15 in the country, 6-1, coming into town. Who do you like here, Stephen? Mizzou at Vanderbilt.
Got a little bit of Dabo there, little old Clemson. No one can beat us, So I think that Drinkowitz is playing this the right way, right? Like it's kind of, maybe kind of silly to Mose, but I mean, you're going on the road to play a top 10 to Vanderbilt team that is a playoff potential here. I mean, it is a potential elimination game for both teams. Both teams could win out, but I think it's going to be hard for all these teams in November to survive. So there is a ton at stake here, just in terms of playoff SEC positioning. Great matchups as well. I cannot wait to watch Diego Pavia play this Missouri defensive front, because Missouri's defense holding teams to less than 3 yards per carry. They did give up some yardage to Auburn last week, but just the talent on this defensive front. And Pavia carved up LSU last week. Now he gets a chance against this Missouri front. I can't wait to see how that battle plays out. And then I can't wait to see if Ahmad Hardy can get on track. He's been quiet for 2 weeks in a row. I think this matchup is a little bit better for him in Missouri. If you look at the, kind of who Vanderbilt has played, Hardy's the best running back that Vanderbilt has faced this year. They're giving up 3.4 yards per carry, but I think Hardy and Missouri can find some room on the ground. And that's important because if you can run the ball, take a little bit of pressure off Prabula. We know he's thrown some interceptions recently. Vanderbilt has been pretty good at generating pressure with 20 sacks, but they're also pretty vulnerable in the secondary. Nussmeier's had success. Simpson. We saw Utah State earlier in the year as well. So I think if Prabula has time and Hardy's running the ball, I think Missouri's got the ingredients to go on the road and win this game. Vanderbilt had 36 minutes of time of possession last week against LSU. And I think about that and thinking about the run game for Missouri, thinking about Pavia. These teams are not totally opposites here, but it does feel like the style is going to matter a lot. Like if Pavia's got the ball for 37 minutes, Missouri's not winning this game probably. But if Hardy's running for 150 yards, Missouri's probably got a good chance to go on the road and get the upset. Also, I think in a close game like this, 2 things to watch. Number 1, obviously, is turnovers. But number 2, big plays. Both of these offenses, just in SEC play, are not generating a ton of big plays. They're not at the top of the leaderboard in the SEC. So it does feel like in a game where you've got 2 teams that can piece together drives, you got 2 mobile quarterbacks, which team can maybe break 1 or 2 big plays and gets a turnover probably wins this game. I think Ahmad Hardy is going to have a good game. In Diego Pavia, I trust.
Oh, no.
Give me Vanderbilt 26, Missouri 23, and what I think is a 4-quarter thriller, much like last week's in Nashville was with LSU.
Well, you often say, Stephen, you trust, or like in these coin toss type ball games, you like to go with the quarterback and head coach you trust the most. I don't want to speak for you, but does that mean you trust Clark Lee more than Drink, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. I think really this is just a play that I'm taking Diego Pavia more than anything. But I think it's very easy to pencil in, like if you're just doing predictions, say Vanderbilt's favored, they're at home, they should win this game. I think if you take a step back and look at some of the matchups, I do think there is Missouri might be a little undervalued here. And I think the spread being 2-3 points kind of shows that. So Hardy to me is the key and I think maybe in a good way, if you're Missouri, he didn't have a good game last week and they still found a way to win. This Missouri defense is tough. Prabula's rushing, Hardy's rushing. There's a real path here. So how the battle plays out in the trenches and how the 2 quarterbacks fare is probably more important to me than the head coach battle here. But I trust Pavia at home for sure.
If Vanderbilt wins, How likely is it they make the college football playoff?
It's getting more likely, but I think their playoff hopes are probably going to come down to that game against Tennessee. Because I think, and this is just, I'm playing the odds here, I'm guessing they are going to be an underdog to Texas. Now, they could win that game, but if you play the Vegas odds, there's the second loss if they win on Saturday. I think they beat Auburn. I think they beat Kentucky. So basically, you're setting up win and in against Tennessee on November 29th. So
well, of course, you're leaning Texas there, but not surprised.
I was using the Vegas odds there. I do.
Now, how about Missouri? If they drop to Vanderbilt, what are the odds they make the playoff, you think?
I think they have a chance to play their way back in, but I think just looking at the resume here, Kansas is a fringe bowl team right now. You would have lost to Alabama. If you get to 10-2, that's wins over A&M and Oklahoma, which are certainly top 25 teams. So it gets a little better if you can win out.
But as we discussed, Auburn and Carolina, they both might miss the bowl games too.
Yeah, I think just comparing Missouri to some other 10-2 teams, if you beat, let's say, if you beat Texas A&M and Oklahoma, that's 2 top 25 wins. You're right there in the bubble to make the playoff. Not having a major non-conference victory, if we get to comparing resumes at 10-2 or in Oklahoma at 9-3, that might be problematic. But I just looking at the bubble, I think if you're 10-2, you're going to be in good shape because I would be surprised if Georgia Tech goes undefeated in the ACC. They seem to play close games every week. You've got BYU playing close games. Like, you're bound to lose one of these, which opens up more paths for an SEC team, like that 5th or 6th SEC team, like we talked about.
Mm-hmm. All right, Stephen, final matchup here. What a game here as mighty A&M on the road at LSU, Stephen. 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central, nationally televised, of course, on ABC. A&M favored on the road. What? In Tiger Stadium? Do they not know the history, Stephen? A&M favored by 2.5 points. Over under 47.5 points. A&M has yet to win at LSU since they joined the Southeastern Conference. Is history made on Saturday, Steve?
Mike, I think that stat is super important to this game. Because if you just look at the way that the series has gone, it has been a struggle for A&M on the road at LSU. Also, just think about where this matchup sets up. You've got Texas A&M trying to kind of write a new chapter in the program. Not trying to be 8-4, they're trying to be playoff good, and they're right there on the cusp of that. If you're LSU, the word is desperation. Back against the wall, 5-2. You can't afford another loss because you still have to go to Alabama and you still have to go to Oklahoma. And with the way that Arkansas can score, there's no guaranteed win right now for this team. So the fact that this game is at home, the fact that LSU is desperate, it wouldn't stun me if they won this game. Now, I've probably been a little bit too optimistic on LSU's offense breaking out at some point. I think they kind of just are who they are at this point. And I think what really worries me is this LSU offensive line, because Cassius Howe and this pass rush for Texas A&M is coming on Saturday night. LSU's beat up on the offensive line. We know they've had some issues on the ground. Texas A&M, 25 sacks this year. They're going to have to get rid of the ball quick out of Nussmeier's hands, or they're going to have to figure something out because the edges could be a real problem on Saturday night. So can LSU find some balance? You don't want Nussmeier to be 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10 all night, because I think that's just a recipe for him to take too much pressure. Texas A&M's defense has been vulnerable on the road, though. 40 points in their 2 road games in Notre Dame and Arkansas. So there are some questions how they travel here. The other side of the ball is a good on good. Texas A&M's firepower with the offensive line, the rushing attack, the receivers, they've got a lot of firepower they are bringing to Death Valley. And then this LSU defense, which is good, but they've played 2 top 25 teams, and Vanderbilt and Ole Miss, and both of those were able to move the ball. If LSU had trouble defending Vanderbilt's offensive line and Pavia, Marcel Reed, Mario Craver, Concepcion, Ruben Owens, Texas offensive line, seems like it's going to be a tougher matchup, right? Mike, when I look at this game, I think about getting off to a fast start. Because if I'm Texas A&M, I want to score early and I want to take LSU fans out of the game. I want to make LSU play from behind because I don't think they can, the way the offense has been this year. The intangibles tell me to take LSU because they're at home and desperate. It's like last stand kind of thing. I just think A&M's a better team. I think they're going to go get it done. So give me A&M 27, LSU 24.
Oh, man, history made Saturday night in the SEC. So if they get 8-0, what are the odds A&M goes 8-4?
Very low.
I'm just
Mike, I think if they win this game, I think they're probably going to the college football playoff, or at least you should feel very good about your position, don't you?
Oh yeah. I mean, we might as well punch their ticket now if they win it. So, I have no doubt about that. Heck, I said that after the Notre Dame win. So,
yeah,
I think they're well on their way, and they're going to. I know everybody's obsessed with the playoff, but if they win on Saturday, I think they're headed to Atlanta for the first time as they'll make the SEC championship.
Yeah, I was going to say not only playoff, but we have to take a step back in that they probably should feel good about going to the SEC championship game. I mean, anything can happen. There's still a long way to go, but the fact that South Carolina has been so sluggish on offense and then going to College Station, like you figure that's in the win column. I mean, Texas A&M could go beat Texas with the way Texas has played this year. So, I would feel good if I'm at Texas A&M and I win this game on Saturday.
What about LSU if they drop to 5-3 after beating Clemson? Stephen, they can't win the opener. That was the narrative all offseason. They finally did it. Yet now we're 5-3, 2 months into the season with 2 tough road trips remaining. Man. Is there a chance? Even if it's 1 out of 100, if they drop to 5-3, is there a chance Brian Kelly's not back in 2026 at LSU?
I think there's a chance, don't you? I mean,
depends on how bad Alabama beats us.
I guess my question with LSU would be, I mean, isn't next year going to feature quite a bit of, I mean, you went heavy into the portal on defense. A lot of those guys are gone. Nussmeier's gone. I mean, they can reload certainly through the portal. I did have the thought of, well, maybe they would bring Kelly back and have an OC change. That's kind of like one of the last cards you could play. I also think to go back to our discussion on the coaching carousel, I mean, we kind of joke about this, but would it stun you if a lot of these coaches like get new jobs and they just leave one to go to another? Like Brian Kelly could just say, I went 8-4. If I hang around here next year, I might get fired. I could leave now. I go get a new contract. I start the clock over. I don't have to sit through a tough rebuild. I mean, I could see it with quite a few coaches this offseason. It would not stun me at all. And just in the big picture here, Mike, 8-4 would be really disappointing for this LSU team if that's where they end up, given the investment, given the expectations this year, and given the talent, right?
Oh, yeah. And given the fact that now, again, I know Florida didn't live up to the hype, but my narrative, and I think it was shared by many, that if they could have a really bad season if they lost to Clemson in the opener and lost to Florida for the second consecutive season. I said the loser of that game, I think the coach is getting fired. So the fact that they start if you start 4-0, I know the other two are not impressive, but if you start out 4-0 and you end up 8-4, that ain't good. That ain't good enough for a guy that came down here and said, "I'm down here. I came down here to win national championship." He is. I think he's proven that he's incapable of doing that.
Not to mention, what if Vanderbilt makes the playoff? What if Ole Miss makes the playoff? You're talking about those two teams making the playoff over LSU would certainly not sit well if I was an LSU fan. Like, they're making the playoff and we invested this offseason and we went 8-4. So it feels like every week is going to be a playoff at this point for LSU because of those two losses. If you can beat A&M, maybe you lose to Alabama, but maybe you still find a way to get to 9-3, and at least you're in the conversation. I don't think the feelings are as bad, but certainly I still think it's very disappointing because you did check off a lot of boxes. You won the opener, beat Florida, but in the SEC to finish 9-3 or 8-4, given that you had one of the best quarterbacks in the country coming into the season, plus the portal investment on defense, would really scream disappointment for me, even at 9-3.
Mm-hmm. I think they're going to have to pull a Oklahoma or Vanderbilt. Go get you a coordinator quarterback combo, because if they bring back Brian Kelly, if they bring him back, coordinator quarterback combo to get this offense rolling immediately, because they ain't going to give you a year or two to see if the offense can get going.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, which coordinator and quarterback could you go get right away that supercharges your offense, much like Beck and Pavia, Arbuckle, and Mateer? So that is kind of like the one thing I could see is, like, at the end of the year, they put out the statement saying, look, we haven't met expectations, but we're going to give Brian Kelly all the resources. Joe Sloan is let go. They hire a new OC. Michael Van Buren showed some things at Mississippi State. They're not totally empty at the quarterback position, just thinking ahead a little bit. But yeah, it does feel like if he's back next year, it is make or break. There's no coming back from 8-4 in 2026.
Well, there you go, Stephen. I gave you an article to write on Sunday after LSU loses, according to your picks, who Brian Kelly should go hire an offensive coordinator and quarterback to fix this mess. But all right, hey, final thing we always like to ask you, Stephen, your John Mateer lock of the week.
Mike, I am going to take Tennessee. With that spread trending down to 7.5, I'm going to take the Vols. I actually was on, I forget who I took here earlier. I think I was actually going to take Ole Miss to lock as just a cover. But because the spread at Tennessee went down to a touchdown, I'm taking the Vols as my John Mateer lock of the week.
Okay, well, that is quite the gamble. Let me tell you, if you ever bet on anything, Tennessee to cover for you, you are playing with fire, my friend. But anything else before we wrap this one up?
Sounds like Mike is taking Kentucky. He's got his bet in my bookie.
I may take about right. I'm motivated.
Cousin Shane's not going to show up for the prediction show if this keeps happening. Mike, I cannot wait for this weekend of games, just because it's the final weekend in October. We've got so much at stake with the conference title, the playoff, the coaches, the Heisman race. I think Diego Pavia ought to be right up there near the top of the leaderboard for Heisman frontrunner. He's probably not getting enough credit. If they beat Missouri, hopefully they'll finally start to get his credit. But just so much at stake as we head into November, and with the gaps between some of these teams being small, it just feels like we're in for another great weekend of close games and hopefully some crazy finishes.
No doubt. And shout out the legend JP. Shout out Cousin Rick, Cousin Junior, Mizzou Fan 7, Cousin Lou, Brandon Riley, and B-Dad. Oh, I think I forgot. I don't think I got B-Dad. Shout out B-Dad. He gifted a membership. Thank you, JP, for letting me know. Let me see if I can track that down real quick. While I look that up, Stephen, can you remind the cousins where to follow you and where to find your work?
Absolutely. You can read all my work at athlonsports.com. I'm over on Twitter at athlonsteven and Stephen LCFB over on Facebook and Instagram.
All right, Stephen, thank you so much for dropping all this knowledge on us. And thank you, B-Dad, for gifting to Travis Gann. Travis, welcome to
the family.
All right, Stephen, hey, have a great weekend. Enjoy these games. And Shane and I will be back tonight, same time as always, 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 Central, for an SEC mailbag edition. If you haven't already, get your question in over on the YouTubes. And if you're an official cousin, you're guaranteed to get your question answered. Until then, we'll catch you here in a couple hours.
Hey, buddy, this beer's for you, Mike, and Cousin Shane. That SEC podcast loves the Pirate, and the Pirate loves that SEC podcast. Hail State.